Yep, you read the title correctly. I don't want to read your white books. Hi everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WC Reader, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is inspired by an author thread. I feel like I'm more in the author spaces lately than I am like the general reader spaces lately. Like, I really have no clue what y'all be talking about on booktube lately, just because I'm kind of in my own reader bubbles, and especially since Twitter like imploded and Booksky doesn't really have like an algorithm. When I do see reader stuff, it's because I have to open threads, and honestly I try to spend as little time on threads as possible because that place is rife with discourse. But I saw this twice in a row and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna speak on this because this is something that I have thoughts about. So this is from Brown Boy Writing. I don't know the author's name. I don't feel like looking it up right now either. But he wrote The Black Queen. White authors are given so much grace from readers, allowed and sometimes encouraged to write BIPOC characters. But when a BIPOC author wants to write from the perspective of a white character, y'all complain and shade their work. Make it make sense. And I read that and my thoughts were coming out. Because first off, I just want to say, I hate when people use BIPOC when they're really talking about black. Like, he's clearly talking about when black authors write white characters. You don't have to throw BIPOC into the mix every single time. And I hate that that's done so much in the book community, because you're really not talking about all people of color. You're talking about people with your same background and complexion. So I'm like, let's use black when we mean black instead of BIPOC. Second of all, I don't go to BIPOC authors or black authors and expect white characters. That's just not something I'm here for. As a black woman who was born and raised in the US, I've read my fair share of white authors. Like, we are inundated with them. Even if you live outside of the US, you've read your fair share of white authors just because they dominate the publishing space. Like, I talked to my aunt and cousin who were born and raised in Trinidad, and they, for fun, were reading a lot of historical romance because those are the types of books that were being brought into the country for them to buy, because they don't have the wide perspective of book like that we have. They don't get all the things we get access to. And imagine here, in some places, it was harder to find black books. They were kind of buried. Like, you kind of had to actually look. So it's like the same thing there. You have to like look harder in a lot of these books. They just don't get them because they're trying to get them what is popular first, because it's more expensive to get books. And then there's all types of issues depending on like this territory and this territory. Like, the English speaking Caribbean tends to fall under English territory when it comes to publishing. Really weird stuff. But this particular author, when he's talking about shade, a lot of the critiques that I saw for The Black Queen were about this white girl being centered, even though she was racist, and she got basically like a redemption arc from my understanding. And people went into this book thinking that it was going to be a story about a black girl. Now, I already knew not to pick up this book, so I'm not a big fan of black YA thriller, or just YA thriller in general. I feel like a lot of people, when they write YA thriller, they're just kind of writing books similar to the ones that they grew up and loved reading. Just like, if it's a black author, a lot of times they'll just make like the main characters black, but I find so many of them are very race centric. Like, racism is the go-to, and a lot of these black characters, they'll be like the one black person among a sea of others. And I try to limit how much of those types of books I read. And already thrillers and me, we aren't the best of friends. I will try and read thrillers, but a lot of thrillers I just don't find thrilling. Like, I'm expecting fast-paced, exciting, keeps me guessing, and a lot of these people be writing real slow burn stuff, and I can see the twist coming from a mile away, and that's just not a fun reading experience for me, so I know to stay away from certain books. This book, I read the synopsis, I'm like, not for me. Saw the cover, I'm like, why is that girl wearing colored contacts? Not for me. I have read my fair share of Black authors writing the white perspective. Most of the time when I read it, it's in interracial romance. However, I've read fantasies where they had like one white POV character among Black characters. I've read mystery. There's been some books like I was excited to read at first, and because I'm like, oh, it's a Black author in this space where we're not really that visible. And then I saw that it was a white character, and I'm just like, I'm good. Like, that was happening for me in cozy mystery, where there were Black authors writing cozy mystery that were white characters. I'm just like, yeah, I didn't sign up for that. Like, I don't mind reading white characters, I really don't, but I'd rather get them from white people directly. I've heard the argument from BIPOC authors like, oh, well, we have the right to write white characters and we can write them more authentic because we've consumed so much literature growing up with white characters at the forefront. And I'm like, I disagree with that, because at the end of the day, we still don't know what it's like to live as a white person. And I'm including me in it because I also write. No, I haven't written a white perspective since college. Like, I remember I was in a creative writing class in college, and we had to write a short story, and like, the class was mostly white, of course. This was a PWI, and I'm like, I want to write something that kind of centers Black people and like Latinx people, because that's my community that I grew up around. But I'm like, also, I don't know, because I was working with a white girl on the story. Like, we had to team up and work with a partner. So we ended up writing a dystopian story about this white man who like seemingly had the perfect life, and he found out it was all a lie, and kind of found out that there was this like secret underground rebellion of like people of color who were conspiring against the government. So that was the last time I wrote in the white perspective, and really, like, he was an outsider looking in, and it was the people of color getting stuff done. I just feel like I want to tell stories about people who look like me, and a lot of times when I see Black authors writing these stories with the white perspective, it's not very genuine. Like, I've heard many people say, oh, I had to write that story to get on, to write the stuff that I wanted to write. I had to write that because I knew it would make money, or whatever excuse they have to write this white character. A lot of times it's just like, I'm trying to appeal to my editor, because a lot of these white editors still don't know how to step outside of their perspective. And like, ever since Twilight, and maybe it was before that, a lot of people read by putting themselves in the story, which I never read Twilight, so I'm like, maybe that's why I don't have that problem. But I've just never needed to insert myself into the story. And I've even talked to Black readers who are like, oh, I insert myself into the story. Like, I will read past where it says blonde hair and blue eyes and just imagine a Black person, or like, I will imagine that this white character is Asian, and I'm like, but they are clearly stated as white. What are you talking about? Like, that just doesn't connect for me. But some people, they have to insert themselves in the story to be able to enjoy it, which is something else which I think people need to stop doing. You should be able to step outside of your own perspective. You don't need to be a character in the story. You should be able to look back and see the story being told to you and understand and experience something different from what you know. And I have had black authors tell me, oh, you know, I redeemed this white character because my publisher really wanted me to redeem them, and that was like their only caveat. Like, I could write what else I wanted, but I had to redeem this white character. I'm like, this white person was a racist who tried to kill your main character. What do we mean we're redeeming them? And that's something like I've had to think about as I try and pursue a future in publishing. Like, I'm gonna stand my ground there because I don't want to have to redeem any racist white characters, and I also don't want to have to center white characters because I want to center people who look like me, people who are underrepresented, people who deserve to have a voice, and I want to center different types of stories because it shouldn't be about black exceptionalism to get published. We shouldn't be having to explain our humanity. That's something I talk about a lot on this channel. And I have white side characters in my stories sometimes. Like, I have a couple of white side characters in the urban fantasy I've been working on, but that's what they are. They are side characters. Like, they are definitely their own characters, but they're not there taking public space, and they don't have their own POV in the book because it's not their story. I'm not here to make white people comfortable reading my books. I want black people to be able to read my books and enjoy them and just enjoy the story, even if it's not their experience. And I am one of those people who will shade a black author if they wrote this white character, because a lot of times too, they don't write these white characters feeling very authentic. Like, people who write interracial romance, see, they'll write from the white male perspective. This is the idealized version of the white male perspective. These men usually don't even bring up race in any way, shape, or form. So a lot of people, they don't want to read about race in their romance, which is understandable. But like, you really cannot navigate the world as an interracial couple and race never comes up in the conversation. So I just like always find that weird, especially because I do have a lot of mixed people in my family. And like, I'm like, it's going to come up, like, even in a mostly black place. Like, my mom grew up in Guyana for like the first 14 years of her life, and she had a white great grandfather, so she had like whiter looking family members who married a people. Like, she had to go to a very white church at the time. And so even they were having discussions about race. So it's not something you can really ignore as you move through the world. So when I read interracial romance, like, that alone is like a fantasy to me, that it never comes up. Especially because some of those are very weird too. Like, they'll demonize the white mother, potential mother-in-law. But I'm like, you don't think any of his, like, her ideologies passed down to her son? He is just so much better than his mom. He just doesn't see color. Like, come on. So there's that aspect of, like, you get the perfect white man in interracial romance. He just knows what to say. He's understanding. He doesn't have any weird questions about, like, your hair or cultural foods or, like, how you move through the world. And then sometimes I will read these white POV characters in YA, and they, for lack of a better word, feel too woke. Like, they'll say stuff like, oh, I'm checking my white privilege, and it's hilarious because it's like trying too hard to be a white ally. And I'm like, also, most teens just don't talk like that. Even a lot of black teens, they are not perfect. They do not have the full perspective of race that some of these books would like to think that they have. Because a lot of stuff you just don't learn until, like, over time, interacting with different people and experiences. I remember even in school, like, white people were learning as we were going through class together in college. And their understanding of race, even a few years out of college, was just so vastly different than their understanding within college. And it's really weird to me when I read a book by a black author and there's a white POV and like the black person is like the best friend. That just like blows my mind, because I'm like, we spend so much time, so many years, we're often the token friend in a lot of stories, so why would you tokenize yourself within your own story? That doesn't make any sense to me. So yeah, some of us are going to shade you for writing these inauthentic white characters instead of writing a black character, because we're not going to you for white characters. We're going to you as a black author expecting black characters. I feel like people still try to use I wrote a black character as a selling point as a black author, and I'm like, no, that's the bare minimum, and it's always been the bare minimum. I don't expect black authors to write anything but black characters. It's just always been that way for me. So like, that's the bare minimum. Now I just want to see what you do from there. And even then, I don't read a ton of white books. Like, I maybe read less than 10 a year. And I come across books by authors of color, like not even just black authors, but different races as well, where it's basically like insert popular white story, but we added a non-white person at the forefront. And I'm like, the way a non-white person navigates the world is just so different. And it's more than just the racism aspect of it, because when I think about being a black person, it's not I'm black in relation to how white people treat me. Like, they don't even factor in. There's just little like cultural nuances when it comes to being black, besides just like hair and skin color. There's different shared memories that we all have growing up. There's just like little things you know how to do, like how you would get dressed for church, different foods that we eat, different phrases and vernacular, like little traditions that tie us together even when we come from different parts of the diaspora. So like, I don't know what it's like to be a white person, to be able to write in their perspective, be able to write characters from various European countries, because I don't know anything about their culture. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!